Hey there, everybody. It's your bipolar buddy, Ren. Welcome. If this is your first time seeing me, welcome. If you are a returning viewer, welcome back. So, I thought today that maybe what we should talk about is how to get the most out of your psychiatrist appointments because I just had a follow up today. And so it's on my mind, something that just happened, and I thought, hey, why not? Why not talk about it? Because I know it took me many years to actually know how to best approach an appointment to get a lot out of it. So I thought I'd share that information with you. Uh, let's see, a couple things before I dive in. One, this video is aimed at people who have seen their psychiatrist before and who know what to expect, but really just want to get the most out of their appointments. I will be at some point making a video about what you can expect in your first psychiatrist appointment if you are new to bipolar and haven't had that experience yet, just to kind of demystify it. So that's coming, but that's not the focus today. So I've kind of narrowed it down to like 6 key things you want to do to get the most out of your appointment. And if you want the quick and dirty version, here you go. Uh, One, you want to do some prep beforehand. Two, know your treatment plan, meaning your medications, what you're taking and why. Three, be honest with your provider. Four, advocate for yourself. Stand up for yourself. Five, make sure you ask lots of questions. And six, take notes on what your provider says. There you go, quick and dirty version. Now, if you're along for the ride, let's dive in with a little bit more detail. So the first thing that I do, and I'll kind of see if I can show you this. I'm not great with a camera, so I'm still learning. So this is kind of like the notes that I took before my psychiatrist appointment today. So that's always the first step for me, is to sit down and make sure I am ready to talk about anything and everything that might be asked, anything and everything that's going on, what I have concerns about, any trends. So the first thing I do is look back and think about, okay, what's been going on in my life in terms of like triggers I've been having, environmental things, situational, not like directly bipolar things, but things that can relate to or exacerbate the bipolar. So, um, are there any stressors? Is there anything that's stressing you out? Money, work, interpersonal relationships, um, moving, losing a job, starting a new job, getting married, having a child, so many things. So many things can cause stress, good stress and bad stress, and that's important to talk about. How's your appetite? Have you been eating? Are you eating enough? Are you eating more than usual? Food is also really important in managing your mood. So make sure you write something down about that. Sleep. Are you getting enough sleep? Are you having trouble getting to sleep? Are you sleeping too much? Are you tired during the day? Are you wide awake at night? What's going on with your sleep? How are you doing with your daily tasks? Like getting out of bed, making meals, going to work, whatever else you have around the house. Like, for example, I have cats. Am I getting up and feeding them? Am I cleaning their litter box? Am I making sure they have clean water? One of them takes medication. Am I making sure he gets it? So on and so forth. And then the last thing I would include on that list is probably, have there been any changes to your schedule or routine or to your habits? So, you know, uh, maybe you have to go into work earlier or stay later. Um, Maybe, oh goodness, I'm trying to think of other things and I'm coming up blank, but I think you get the idea. If something in your schedule or your routine has changed, it might be worth discussing because all of these things can affect your mood. So then the next thing we want to talk about is your mood. How stable is it? Have you been kind of all over the place? Are you feeling good? Have you been consistently up or down? What's going on? What kinds of episodes are you having? Manic, hypomanic, depressive, with or with psychotic feature, with or without psychotic features, with or without hallucinations. Are they mixed? Are you having anxiety? What's going on? How long are they? So, like, if you're like me and you are ultra rapid cycling, those episodes might be a couple hours. For some people, those are days or weeks. So, what's going on? How long are you staying in that mood state? What kind of symptoms are coming up for you? So, like if I'm feeling hypomanic, I feel agitated, I can't sit still, I'm very uncomfortable, physically and mentally, just really uncomfortable, agitated, want to scream, want to cry, want to throw things, want to break things. So, then also when I'm depressed, lots of crying, everything feels very intense. Any emotion feels very intense. So, what's going on with your symptoms? How many episodes have you been having? Because again, like me, it's almost daily sometimes that I'm having episodes. So that's worth noting. And are there any specific triggers that you've noticed happening? Um, you also, in your notes, want to make sure that you talk about your meds. How are they working? Are there any that you think aren't working as well as they should? Um, are you having any side effects? So, because those things are important, they make a difference for your psychiatrist to know how the meds are working for you. I want to say also, as an aside, that mood tracking is going to make this process so much easier. So much easier. It was really only in about the past, not even a year, that I started consistently tracking my mood. It's just, it makes life so much easier because what I do, I use Dailyo, a mood tracking app. And so I can go in and record, okay, my mood on this given day. If there's a scale, I can name them what I want to name them. So I have like good, meh, bad, awful. Um, so what was my mood? I can track other things like how many meals did I eat? How did I sleep? What kinds of things did I do that day in terms of like chores, in terms of self care? What symptoms was I having? You can take notes in there, you can add pictures. Um, I found that very helpful. Um, I know people who also just make their own customized mood charts, uh, like put them on an Excel sheet or you know, what have you, write it down on a piece of paper. Everybody's a little bit different. It just depends on what you think works for you. But the important thing really is just to be able to customize it so that it's meaningful to you. And I also take screenshots of my mood chart so you can see kind of like it's an actual graph. You can see the ups and downs of the different days. So I send that to my psychiatrist in advance of my appointment so that he can look at it and then we can use it together during the appointment to kind of address what's been going on. So that's something I would really recommend. I was resistant to it for many years. Early on in diagnosis, I was like, I don't really need to do that. It's such a hassle. I know what's going on. Nah. If you have a lot of episodes like I do, you know that they interfere with your memory. And come that next monthly appointment, bi-monthly, every 3 month appointment, whatever you have, you're not going to remember as many things as you think you're going to. So it's much easier to just track it. And it's going to help you as well. But we'll talk about that another time. So, second, make sure that you know your treatment plan. By which I mean know your meds. What are you taking? What meds are you taking? What dosages are you taking? Has the, excuse me, how has that changed over the past month or so? However long it is that you've been making changes. What does each medication do to help with your mood? I mean, like, is it an antidepressant? Are you taking a mood stabilizer that's gonna, just help with mania? Are you taking one that helps with the depression and the mania? Are you on an antipsychotic that is going to help pull up from the depression and also push down on the mania? Do you take something for anxiety? Do you have anything for sleep? So on and so forth. If you know what you're taking and what purpose they serve, what they do to your mood, that can really help you identify what you might need to adjust, if anything, in that psychiatric appointment. Um, I'd also recommend, taking a minute to write down how well are they working since the last time you saw your psychiatrist? Have there been any changes? Do they seem not as effective as at first? in some cases, are they too effective? Like if you're taking an antidepressant, is it making you manic or hypomanic? These are things that are good to know. Also, I would encourage you to make sure that you know what your long-term medication plan is. You know, for example, I'm on a long-term journey right now from taking several medications to trying to eliminate what my psychiatrist calls destabilizing medications, like antipsychotics and antidepressants, because those push up and pull down, and those can kind of pull you in multiple directions. And I've had a lot of trouble finding stability. So, to try to maximize my stability and long term not have to constantly jump from med to med to med and push doses up and up and up over and over again. um, his plan for me is to drop the antipsychotics, drop the benzos for anxiety, drop the antidepressants, and just focus on Lamictal and lithium, which both work as mood stabilizers. So I need to think about between appointments, okay, this is the goal. How are we going to get there? And what changes can be made at this point that are going to help with that, or that are just going to help me stay stable or get more stable since the last change we made. So that brings us to number 3, being honest. Now, this probably seems really obvious, but I know I've done this. I know other people who've done this as well. It's so easy when you've been in and out of psychiatrists for years to give the, right answers. The answers that the psychiatrist wants to hear, the ones that are going to get you out of that appointment and mean you're not going to be pushed towards hospitalization. I've done it many times. In retrospect, I wish I hadn't. Having been in inpatient a handful of times in the past few years, I really do wish that I'd just been honest back then, because I definitely could have used the time in inpatient. But anyway, getting back to the point, the more honest you are with your provider, the better care you're going to get, the more you're going to get out of your medications, out of recommendations. It just makes sense to be honest. And I know it's scary sometimes, because what happens if you get pushed towards an involuntary admit? But please try to be honest with your psychiatrist, because just because you're honest that you've maybe harmed, or that you're thinking about harming, or that you're having suicidal ideation, that doesn't always mean that you're going to get that involuntary admit. Like, I've had these conversations with providers a handful of times, and what it comes down to is, can you keep yourself safe? Can you keep yourself safe? Or are you a danger to your life? And honestly, staying alive is so much more important than staying out of the hospital. Your life is more important than having to be an inpatient for, couple weeks, 5 days, 4 days, 3 days if you're just there on an involuntary hold. Your life is more important than that hospital stay is an inconvenience. So please be honest with your provider, and be honest with yourself about what you need. So the next step, number 4, advocate for yourself. This is something I have learned over the past couple years through doing inpatient, that you're bipolar better than anybody else does. You live it every single day. Your psychiatrist, your therapist, anybody else, they see you how many hours a week? How many hours a month? Do they even see you every month? They don't know it as well as you do. Do they know a lot of things about bipolar? Sure they do. But your bipolar is different than anybody else's. You are different than everybody else. So they don't know yours as well as you know yours. So stand up for yourself. If you're being pushed to make changes that you aren't comfortable with, say so. Say that, no, I'm not going to make this change. I'm not okay with that. this is what I want. And if it gets to the point, honestly, that you have to stop seeing a provider, you've got to fire them and find a new one, do it. Do it. You got to look out for yourself. I, you need to be your best friend in this case, and that means, speaking your mind when it comes to things like, you don't have to be mean about it, but like I fired a psychiatrist not too long ago because he was not listening. He was not listening to what I needed and was pushing me into doing things I didn't want to do and was invalidating the things I was going through. And I was done. I was done with that. Even the last time I did inpatient, they assigned me to a psychiatrist who decided he knew my diagnoses better than I did before he even met me. Um, He wanted to make all kinds of changes to my medications after having talked to me for maybe 10 minutes. And I basically said, no, no, you're not doing that. You are not touching my medications. Because he legit stopped a couple of them before he even saw me. It was like, yeah, no, you went to grad school. You can't have ADHD, so we're going to just take this medication away because it's not possible. Um, yeah, you don't do that to people. You don't do that to people. And I wasn't going to put up with that shit because I know my diagnoses, and my regular psychiatrist knows them a little better than someone who's never even met me. Um, so, stand up for yourself, advocate. And if you find that you're seeing a provider who just pushes back and pushes back and pushes back and doesn't listen, that provider is not for you. And I'd recommend, firing them, finding a new one. Okay, so step 5, ask questions. You're probably going to be, if you're making medication changes, there are questions that you'll want to ask. Maybe you have questions to ask before you go into your appointment, depending on, what's going on, how you're feeling about certain meds. So I would recommend before your appointment on your little note sheet, okay, if you want to take a little note sheet like I did, um, write down your questions, make a list, put them on there. If you have any come up during your appointment when you're discussing your treatment plan, write them down. And at the end, just ask and ask until you have gotten all your questions answered. I do this to my poor psychiatrist all the time. I have a huge list of questions, and I feel bad, but he's happy to answer them, and I want answers. I want to make sure that I am as informed as I can be about my treatment. It's important. I want to know. So some questions that I like to ask, if I'm increasing a medication, decreasing a medication, switching medication, basically making any changes to medications, I want to know, are there any side effects? If so, what are the ones I should expect? Are there any I should be particularly concerned about? Also, I want to know if we're changing medications, when am I going to hit that therapeutic level that my body has adjusted to it? Like I've heard with like a lot of antidepressants, for example, it's usually like 6 weeks, something like that, before you hit therapeutic levels. So I like to find out if I'm going to be moving to something new. When can I expect to have the full benefit of this medication? When is it going to maximize? Something else that's important, I hear differing reports on this based on different meds from different people and different providers. Are there any food requirements? Like I've in the past been told I don't really need to worry about eating with certain meds. I have friends whose providers have said, oh yes, make sure you eat with this medication, same medication. Do I need to eat? Should I not eat? Like I know, for example, I don't particularly need to eat with my nighttime meds, in terms of like how they're going to be metabolized. But I should eat with them because the lithium makes me very nauseated if I don't. So I try to eat with that. I know in the morning I'm supposed to eat before I take my antidepressant. So, how do I stage these throughout the day in terms of snacks, meals, all of that. Um, how do I build my routine around these medications? Also, are there any dietary changes I need to make? Um, I know there are some medications. I remember Latuda. I was on Latuda for a number of years. That one, you can't have grapefruit. It interferes with the metabolism of the medication, so it's not as effective, I believe. So you can't have grapefruit, which is awful if you love grapefruit. Um, so it's important to just to find out, are there any foods I should be avoiding? Um, like in addition, I know on lithium, which is something I started not too long ago, staying hydrated is really, really important. So knowing that I should expect to be drinking plenty of water throughout the day, that's really helpful. It's good to know these things. Another consideration is alcohol. Now I know a lot of providers are going to say, well, you're bipolar, you really shouldn't drink at all. And I totally understand. Um, I see both sides of it, that, being able to go out and have drinks, it's like, it's great. It's wonderful. But I see from the provider side, because sometimes that tanks my mood for days afterwards. So, I get both sides of it. It's frustrating because how many other people can go out there and have a drink and you can't have a drink with them just because you have bipolar? It's like, it sucks. Um, but if you can have alcohol with it, should you be limiting it? Like I know, again with lithium, it's one thing that I specifically asked: is alcohol a problem? Because they are both metabolized, I believe, through your liver, and you don't want to really damage your liver with meds and alcohol. Um, so basically, what my psychiatrist said is moderation. In moderation, it's fine, that's really all I ever do. Maybe 1, 2 drinks once a week. And then I make sure that I've sobered up a bit before I take my nightly lithium, just to kind of, you know, give my system a minute. But knowing that's important. How is alcohol going to interfere with the medication? Not just in terms of how my body metabolizes it, but like, am I going to feel extra inebriated because of this medication? Can having alcohol with, like, say, like Ativan, that can cause more central nervous system depression, which means you can have trouble breathing uh, in your sleep. If you have Ativan and alcohol at the right mixture, you might stop breathing. And I don't mean to scare the crap out of you if you're doing that, but you want to be aware of these things so that you can make informed decisions. Don't let this stuff sneak up on you and surprise you. Be as informed as possible. Arm yourself with the best information you can find. Okay, my final suggestion, and I promise I'm done talking, is to just take notes. Take notes at as your provider is talking through stuff, answering questions, talking about adjustments, things to maybe keep in mind or keep an eye out for. Always just jot down notes, even if it's something like, okay, we're changing this medication by this much. Next appointment should be in this long. Things seem like they're going good. Just a few things, because again, it helps to be able to look back and see. And I know my memory gets worse and worse and worse as time goes on, because the more episodes I have, the more I don't know. I don't know. My brain just starts, not latching on to things, to details as much as it used to. So I live by notes. You've probably noticed. I live by notes here. I'm flipping through a notebook right now because I can't remember all these things if I don't have them written down. So, to recap, to get the most out of your appointment with your psychiatrist: 1, make sure you prepare. 2, what was 2? Know your treatment plan. 3, be honest. 4, advocate for yourself. 5, ask questions. And 6, take notes. So, if you have any tips beyond what I've suggested for getting the most out of your psychiatrist appointment, drop them in the comments. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm happy to answer, or at least try. So, Have a great day. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for listening. And this is your bipolar buddy Ren signing off, sending love and support your way.